Today's Wednesday, January 10th, 2024. This is a special session of the School Board of Trustees of the School City of East Chicago. The place is the Central High School Mini Theater. The address is 1100 West Columbus Drive, East Chicago, Indiana, 46312. We are also via live stream at www.secec.k12.in.us. This is a meeting of the school board in public for the sole purpose of conducting the school corporation business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Madam Secretary, call to order.
Trustee Gibson King. Trustee Gomez. Trustee Smith.
Present.
Chairman Rodriguez.
Present. Attorney Harris.
So based upon the attendance today, we do not have a quorum to conduct business, so we would be required to adjourn the meeting. However, we can proceed forward with the scheduled interviews outside of a formal public meeting. Just out of an abundance of caution, I did communicate with Indiana's public access counselor prior to today's meeting regarding our next steps forward. And I did get confirmation from the public access counselor that the two board members who are present and ready to proceed with the process that was agreed to by the board, that they can continue with that. So we will be able to be respectful of the audience's time, the applicant's time, and we can proceed.
Okay.
So with that, I'm recommending that you adjourn the meeting. We'll continue recording and we can proceed with the interviews.
Okay.
It'll just be outside of a public meeting. The public is obviously welcome to stay.
So I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, and I'll second that motion. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Smith.
Actually, with the motion and the second, you can just declare us adjourned.
Okay.
Okay.
This meeting, this special session is adjourned. I think, yeah, so I was going to see if, again. Today, we were going to be conducting interviews, and it is crucial that we maintain a respectful atmosphere for each of the candidates. Therefore, I kindly request that everyone ensures that their cell phones are on silent. And please, for any like conversation or anything like that, we can pretty much hear the way the echo is in this. So just try to keep everything silent, including communication with one another. All right, we're going to start with our first candidate. And give me 1 second. Do you have your list?
Do you have the list?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Our first interviewee, Christina Williams.
Mr. President, if I could just mention something to the candidate before
Sure.
we get started. Good evening.
Good evening. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Mhm. Yep, so I shared some comments prior to you coming in with the audience and the rest of the board that we don't have a quorum here today, so we're not in an official meeting at the moment, but because we did have a board-approved process to proceed forward with interviews, we're going to continue going forward with the interviews with the two board members who are present tonight. The only thing I will say is that you may be subject to being interviewed again. The possibility exists. So there may be a second interview. I just want you to be aware of it. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. You will have 3 minutes to sort of introduce yourself. Each board member will ask 2 questions.
Okay.
You would be given 3 minutes to answer each of those questions, and that would conclude the interview. You understand?
Yes.
Okay, so you can proceed introducing yourself.
Yeah, well, good evening. My name is Christina Williams. I am a resident of East Chicago. I am also a product of East Chicago Public Schools up until middle school, which I then transitioned to Indiana Academy for my high school. As you can see, trustees, on my resume, I am a former educator. I taught special education for 5 years. I worked initially as a paraprofessional in East Chicago, and I worked with that union to make sure that they were unionized before I left that position and started teaching special education. I then served for 7 years as a program director for a youth organization in Chicago, and we worked with youth impacted by the juvenile justice system, ages 17 to 24, and created safe spaces, and we worked on supporting them and giving them those soft skills to transition into job training. In my current role, I serve at Ivy Tech Community College, local, our Lake County campus, and I am the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Belonging. And so education, as you can see, streamlined, that has always been my mission. Any career that I've chosen or any path or route that I have chosen has been around education and supporting students. And so I just found that this position really aligns with my goals and my values, and I think that my experience with over 12 years in education would be a good asset and a good tool and a good skill to bring to the city of East Chicago, specifically the school board.
Thank you. Trustee Smith, did you want to go with the first question?
Yes, my first question, well, good afternoon, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for applying. My first question to you is, how would you, as a board member, work with the superintendent and other members when there's a difference of opinions on needed actions when there are difficult decisions to address?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I can speak to that just professionally, even in my current role. As I stated, I work as a director of diversity, equity, and belonging, and learning to ingrain that into my current culture. The job culture at Ivy Tech has presented challenges because people have different perspectives, right? And one of the key components of understanding different perspectives is being able to empathize with that and find ways to pull out good, usable information that can be applied. And so I have worked with people across the board with different experiences, different values, and I think it's important first to be able to listen, extract information that's critical and important, and then find ways to apply that. You're not always going to agree, and I think it's important that you set the precedent that agreement does not always mean that that's the right decision. I think part of what we have to understand is as we're making tough decisions is if we keep what is central as our students, every decision around that should align with that. And so if we can say, hey, this decision is being made because this is going to impact our students in this way, or this is going to move the ideas this way, but the focus is on students, that's the key component. And so I think one of the key components is listening and extracting that information and finding ways to apply it, even though people have different perspectives.
Thank you.
My question would be could you share your vision for our school district and how to see your role on the board contributing to the realization of your vision?
Oh, I like that question, actually, because I actually took a couple of leadership trainings, if you can see on my resume, that focus on vision. And one of the key things in thinking about establishing an organization or moving things forward, especially considering the school board, is you have to have a vision, right? And the vision is your guiding star. And that is how you make decisions. That is how you decide what partners to bring on. That is how you partner with other organizations to decide if it aligns with your vision. And so one of the quotes that I have that I use even in the body of my email is, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And so that's a quote from Frederick Douglass, right? And so the idea for the school board is if we can get our students prepared as their students and they're sponges and they're absorbing all of this information and we're making decisions that are going to benefit them, then society and the communities benefit from that in the long run. And so my vision would be to focus on educating our students and acquiring and using those skills very early on so that they can be productive citizens as they grow and go out into the community.
Trustee Smith?
You took all my questions. I wasn't prepared for him to take all my questions. We had discussed
understand.
this. In your, just off the top of my head, I know that you are very, very well diverse within the education department, you know, the education of our children. And you did answer some questions, but, okay, what do you see the vision for the district to move forward?
You have to ask everybody the same question.
Oh, okay, well, he took it. Okay, well, I have to change mine. Okay, so this, I have to keep my 2 questions, right? Okay. If selected, what do you want to accomplish during your tenure?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you know, when you are coming into a new space, I think one of the first things is to build a relationship and a trusting relationship with all of the stakeholders. And so that would include the Board of Trustees that I would sit on the board with. That would include our superintendent. That would include our teachers, our educators, our staff, and that our students and our community members. And so one of the first things I would want to address is introducing myself, introducing what I hope to do, which is to be collaborative in all of this work to get a better understanding of what we as a collective, as the Board of Trustees, would like to see for the school city of East Chicago, and always reminding ourselves to keep our students central, as I said previously. I don't know what's happening on the board now, right? I have a different perspective from this side, and so I think one of the key things is I love using data, I love gathering information so that I can make informed decisions. And so I know in the very beginning, one of the things I would like to do is gather as much data and historical content so that I can begin to help and assist in making informed decisions as we move forward with the inclusion of all stakeholders, right? And that means having conversations with students. That means having conversations with community members, regardless of where they sit on the aisle, right? And so that's one of the key things that I would really like to focus on so that we can start moving forward, is building a relationship and foundation of trust.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And my second question is, can you please describe the specific situation in your experience and leadership have contributed to the success of any board or committee you have served in the past?
Absolutely. Well, I will talk about my role on the school board. I ran as a candidate back in 2020. That was a really great learning experience. I look forward to that. I sit on the board of Girls on the Run, which is an organization that focuses on encouraging and empowering young girls and encourages them to get active. I started out as a volunteer coach, and I previously sat as a former board member. And one of the things that I was brought on board is to be able to talk with different and diverse populations, right? And so being able to make a connection with people from different backgrounds and different experiences was one of my strong suits in building up our board, and also recruiting more coaches and staff. Because if you know anything about Girls on the Run, it started out fairly small, and so it's grown, and it's a national organization, and I was a board member for the Northwest region. So I served on that board, and I was able to help grow that and recruit some coaches from diverse populations. And that's really one of my skill sets, is building those relationships and building those partnerships and having strong partnerships. And so that's one of the things that I did. And then when I was in college, I sat on the board for my sorority, but you know, that was a long time ago. But I think this one's probably more relevant.
Okay. Well, thank you. That concludes the questions.
Well, thank you. Can I ask a question?
Attorney Harris?
Yes.
So just one of the questions that I would have is, as we talk about a vision, which is so critical, what do you see as the vision currently as the school board stands, and what do you hope the candidate brings to this position?
That's a lot, but I can tell you this much. The vision for the district has always been very positive. We try to, I think as a role as a board member is to first, have a good conversation, good communication with our superintendent so that we're able to move the district forward. We have great staff, great teachers, great principals, great vice principals, and the focus is just making sure that we keep this momentum going. We've just in the last 6 months, when you talk about partnerships, we developed some great partnerships with universities and community organizations. And I think the most important thing right now is just making sure that we're able to keep the district moving forward, positive, and I think that's where we want to be at. Just keep it moving forward for our kids.
Sounds good.
If I could add to that too, just so you're aware, there are 4 key values that the district has that are on its website. And I think there was a lot of time that went into them coming up with those values during a board retreat. And that's why they're prominently displayed on the website. But I'd encourage you to take a look at that too.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
did. I just wanted to make sure and hear it.
Yeah.
And if I might add, I think that's just aligns again with what I do in my career rather, my professional career. I work at Ivy Tech, right? So it's higher education. It just creates a direct pathway for our students that's visible for them. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I wait outside? Or, yeah?
I believe you can. Wait outside, and we can bring our next.
Yeah, I guess they're all here, so.
Yeah, so we can bring our next candidate.
Thank you.
Next person is Alfred Richardson.
Yes.
So I'll stick with this one.
These are my questions. These are the ones I gave her. These are my questions.
I need to. It's okay. I got to.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm gonna stick with this one.
That's the one you said today, right? It has to be the same for everyone. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, how's everybody?
You want to state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Alfred Richardson.
Mr. Richardson, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, how are you doing, Mr. Harris?
Good, good. So I wanted to give you kind of an overview of where we are right now. The audience is aware. The board does not have a quorum for a regular public meeting tonight, but they are authorized to proceed forward with the interview process. So I just want you to be aware of that. But because we're not in a full meeting with the entire board here, you may be subject to a second interview. Just want you to be aware of that.
Okay.
You will have 3 minutes to introduce yourself. Each board trustee will ask 2 questions. You will be given 3 minutes to answer each of those questions. And if you have any questions for us, you can ask
Okay,
towards the end of
okay,
the question period.
I understand.
Okay? And that concludes the interview.
Okay.
Okay? Mike?
Somebody was gonna introduce himself.
To start by introducing yourself.
Again, my name is Alfred Richardson. Hello. I am a resident of East Chicago. I went to Carrigosh School. I attended Carrigosh School. I went on to graduate from Roosevelt. I've lived in East Chicago almost my entire life. 30 years ago, I started a business in East Chicago. And what we tried to do is employ as many East Chicagoans as we could and get them on the right track. And and so when I think about the children of East Chicago, when I think about a person invested in East Chicago, I think of the children as like a really good investment, and we need to. I want to do something to help the children, and so that's the reason that I put my name in the running.
Trustee Smith?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
My first question to you is, how would you, as a board member, work with the superintendent and other members when there's a difference in opinions and when needed actions? And let me start over again. How would you, as a board member, work with the superintendent and other members when there's a difference of opinion or needed actions that are very difficult decisions to address?
So when there's a disagreement, when the board is working through its disagreements, it works it out in a special session. Is that correct? So I would think that if 2 board members had disagreements, or more than 2 board members had a disagreement, that they could work those things out in an executive session, because I would think that the board will want to present a united front. I would think that the board will want to, since the board has the whole city behind it, and the board needs the support of the city, then the board ought to want to show a united front. And so, if we could work those things out in a closed sort of session, I think it would be beneficial.
My first question is, could you share your vision for our school district and how you see your role on the board contributing to the realization of that vision?
What I'd like to see is the school city of East Chicago and its ratings statewide be improved. What I'd like to see is, when you talk about vocations, I'd like to be hands-on with directing different students. If it's determined that they're better for vocational, then I'd like someone to take them by the hand and actually go through what they need to go through to be the best that they could be. Now, if a person is college-bound, then somebody needs to take them by that hand. So when I want to talk about my own personal experience, I got great grades at Carrigosh. And I had to get great grades at Carrigosh because my mom worked there. Well, when I got to Roosevelt, because we didn't have a middle school in those days, when I got to Roosevelt, I had more freedom. So I wasn't making grades as good as I was making at Carrigosh. And so my counselor came to me and said, listen, we have another track that we could put you on. And what it amounted to was the vocations. What it amounted to was me going to school till 11 o'clock every morning, and then starting at 2 o'clock, me working a 3 to 11 shift at St. Catherine's. Well, to a 16-year-old, it sounds like I can get out of school half a day. But if somebody had looked at my transcript, if somebody had taken a little time to look into my past, they may not have wanted to put me on that trajectory. And so my vision is to help the kids and to make sure that we're not misdirecting them on a path maybe they ought not be on.
Okay. My question to you is, if selected, what do you want to accomplish during your tenure on the board?
Well, I would ask the questions, are the East Chicago schools ranking better than when I got there? Are the graduation rates better than when I arrived? Are there more people in the vocations? Are there more people even graduating? And also, have we done all we could do to make sure the teachers are fairly compensated for what they do? Because we can't really expect the best results if we're not hiring the best people. And as a businessman, I know you have to pay for what you get. And so if we could address teachers' salaries, teachers' compensation, not only salaries, then I believe we can get a better stock of teachers, and as a result, we have a better stock of graduating children.
Thank you.
Can you please describe a specific situation in your experience in leadership have contributed to the success of a board or committee you have served in the past?
I'm sorry, would you say that one more time?
Sure. Can you please describe a specific situation in which your experience and leadership have contributed to the success of a board or a committee you have served in the past?
I can't really speak about boards that I've served on. I've not served on boards in my past. I can speak about, again, my experiences as a business owner. I can speak about individuals that arrive at my door looking for employment, looking for just almost anything. I've taken people and gotten them CDL driver's licenses. I've taken people and actually moved them from my company to a union company where they would benefit from it. It might cost me a good driver, for instance. It might cost me a good operating engineer. But if I see an opportunity to better that person, then it's not important what happens to me. I can find a way to make my puzzle work. So I can't speak about my experiences on boards. I've never been on a board before.
Well, that concludes our questions. Attorney Harris? Do you have any questions for us?
That's what I was gonna say.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that concludes our interview.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
State your name for the record.
Kelly Williams.
Attorney Harris.
Good evening, how are you?
Good evening, Attorney Harris.
So we do not have a quorum of the board tonight, so we're not having an official public meeting. However, this process was approved by the board, and the interviews will continue to go forward tonight. There may be the possibility of you having a second interview in light of the fact that we're not in an official board meeting. So I just want you to be aware of that going into this interview. You may be called back.
Okay.
Okay.
You will have, be given 3 minutes to introduce yourself. Each board trustee will have 2 questions for you. You will also be given 3 minutes to answer each of those questions. And you will have, if you have any questions for us at the end, you can open that up as well. And that will conclude the interview. Okay? Trustee Smith?
Introduce yourself.
Oh, please, introduce yourself.
All right.
And-
Well, my name
excuse
is-
me, And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I don't think I have to tell you all much. I think you all know pretty much a lot about me because I've done a lot of work here in our city and our community. But my name is Kelly Williams. I'm pastor of Greater Destiny Bible Church here in East Chicago, a community activist, community worker, community servant. Been doing ministry and service in our community for well over 25 years. I started off at Zion Missionary Baptist Church where I learned community outreach and started doing a lot of work with mentoring young men that gravitated to mentoring young women. And then I started ministry 17 years ago. We started as a community initiative, something called Wow Fest, Working Outside the Walls Foundation, in which it became the community outreach arm and aspect of our church, in which I do a lot of work with youth, mentoring, a lot of work with young men and young ladies, and do a lot of leadership development, character building. Worked with many community partnerships, the Foundations of East Chicago, Twin City Ministerial Alliance. I work with the school city. We give away free book bags every year to East Chicago kids. This year we gave over 100 pairs of Air Force Ones, understanding that one of the obstacles and challenges for kids in impoverished and underserved communities is just coming having shoes on. It aids in the attendance in that first month, and you know that's where we get our funding from our kids. And so I've been very passionate in doing a lot of work with families and communities, and I know the work. And that's why I'm in front of you all today, because I want to come in, partner with you all. I think one of the things you'll find out about me is that I'm very objective. I can work with anybody, and I always look for the silver lining in the cloud. And I try not to make enemies. I try to work with whoever I can, while I can, and when I can.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
The first question to you is, and you kind of just expound on that, but this is my question to you. How would you, as a board member, work with the superintendent and other board members when there is a differences of opinions on needed actions when there are very difficult decisions to make?
Well, number one is you have to understand why you're in an organization, why you're there. I think that with anything I found in working in organizations, you have to go in with an objective perspective of understanding you're there to get something done. And I think far too many times we see organizations fail and don't reach its goals and its missions because of a failure to understand we can do more together than we can apart. Finding our strengths, strengthening our strengths, and allowing them to drown out our weaknesses, and thinking about what the main initiative is when you are an official that's called in the capacity to serve. It's not about us. It's about those that we're called to serve and working for their best interests. And when you're talking about a school board, that always sums down to one populace, and that is the students. What's best and what's in their best interest as we advocate for them.
Thank you.
Could you share your vision for our school district and how you see your role on the board contributing to the realization of that vision?
Of course. Coming from a home of educators, my mother taught here in East Chicago schools for 20-plus years before she was disabled. I grew up in an environment of teaching, of education. Our parents pushed us to read. And so I understand that you set a child up for success when you create a culture and an environment that's conducive with learning. You know, and so I think that one of the things that we have to do is make sure that, one, our kids are safe, our kids are fed. A lot of times kids come in and you have to really take on the ideology of a holistic approach to education, understanding that teachers need help. And so creating a community and a collaboration between administration, between your workforce and the students, where we can create an environment that our kids love to come in. One of the things where I grasp the ideology from is when we do our mentoring work. One of the things that would be most heartbreaking to me is when you're doing the work with the kids and they're coming into an environment that you're creating, one that's conducive with learning, and then they have to go home. And then there you see the heads go down, and then you're dropping the child off at home and they're saying, do they have to go? Because you've created an environment of hope, an environment of learning, created an environment where they're seeing another side to the coin. So I think that that's the responsibility we have to govern funding, finances, but also play a part in creating that culture within School City of East Chicago that's conducive with our kids coming and having a desire to learn in a safe environment and one where they feel challenged to learn.
Thank you.
Thank you. My question. If selected, what do you want to accomplish during your tenure?
Well, one thing that I would like to do is, one, learn what the needs are. I don't think you come into anything with your things. I think you come into a thing and listen, because you can't learn if you don't listen. And so once you listen to what the challenges are, once you listen to what the needs are, you then do needs assessment, and you begin to set your goals of what, realistically you can get done in the span of time that this seat will be filled by you. But then also understanding that I'm not coming in this with a perspective of, an 8 or 9 month run. I'm coming into it with a perspective that I will be putting my name in the hat to run when this seat becomes open in the next election. And so having a long-range goal, I don't go into anything without setting goals. Our ministry, I set goals for it. And we've done a good job, I think, of accomplishing the things that we wanted to do in a short span of time in our community. We've set a good footprint of what we wanted to do when we began. And whenever you fall off, I think that's one of the things you do. You go back to what was your original vision? What are you there for? And I think I'm there to work with you all, to not be combative, but to see what we can do together. Did I answer?
Thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
I got one more question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
My
ahead.
next question would be, can you please describe a specific situation in your expertise and leadership have contributed to the success of a board or committee you have served in the past?
I think, as you know, in 2019, our world was rocked. COVID-19 came into our atmosphere, our world, and it shook up everything that we knew. And so I think when you look at my resume, you see I was a part of the Target Initiative. I was a part of AFC. I was a part of Greater Destiny, and navigating those times of trying to hold families together and trying to figure out what church, what ministry, what community outreach and initiatives like that look like in the pandemic. One of the things I'm proud of is that our church stayed open. All of our outreach ministries, we became the #1 food pantry in the county of, in Lake County. We were recognized by the Northwest Indiana Food Bank because we didn't close our doors. We found ways to make it happen. Families were suffering. We saw a need that families needed food to eat. They weren't able to feed their families, and we opened the doors of the church up and fed over 25,000 families we fed during a 2-year span of COVID. Also helping navigate with the library board in that, and how do we ensure keeping patrons safe in that environment. And then another thing is that we were able to make sure that the employees kept their jobs, and they got, for the first time that they can ever remember, they got a bonus. And so holding things together even with our community work through AFC and Target. So I think showing that tenacity and having vision, even in one of the darkest moments of the pandemic and of our times, being able to navigate through that and lead people in that great time of suffering that we all went through.
That concludes our questions. Do you have any questions for us?
No, I can't think of anything
Attorney
that I want to ask you all.
I don't have anything. Nope.
Okay. Well, that concludes our interview. Thanks again for putting your
you
name
all.
in the hat.
Thank you.
Good evening. Hi, good evening. Can you state your name for the record? Mercedes Taylor. Mercedes, Attorney Harris?
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
So we did not, as a board, have a quorum to convene a regular meeting, but the board had previously approved the interview process. So they are authorized to proceed forward with the interviews tonight. There is a possibility that you could be called for a second interview, and I just want you to be aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
You'll be given 3 minutes to introduce yourself. Each board trustee who is here today will ask 2 questions.
Okay.
You'll be given 3 minutes to answer each of those questions. And then if you have any questions for us, we'll open the floor for that as well. And that'll conclude our interview.
Okay.
Okay? Will you please introduce yourself?
Yes, well, my name is Maria Mercedes Taylor, but my preferred name is Mercedes Taylor. I am a resident of East Chicago. I've been a resident for 32 years. I currently reside on 4320 Parish Avenue. I am currently employed by Franciscan Alliance Health. I've been employed with them for 16 years, and I currently hold a position of the IS Supervisor for Rev Cycle Education on the corporate level. I've also been a member of my church, Grace City Church in East Chicago, for 21 years. I am a mother of 2 grown adults, and I'm a wife of a retired police officer for the city of East Chicago of 30 years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Taylor, my question to you is, how would you, as a board member, work with the superintendent and other members when there is a differences of opinions or needed actions when we have very difficult decisions to address?
Great question. So difference of opinions, that's to be expected, correct? That comes with the territory. Open communication is very important. Also, just having understanding of that shared responsibility. But I honestly believe that bringing our opinions and our feedback and our observations and just aligning them up with the policies, that's what the policies are there for, will help us come to the greater outcome. But I mean, again, with conflict, you just expect it. When you expect it, you embrace it, and you just exceed it.
Thank you.
My question is, could you share your vision for our school district and how you see your role on the board contributing to the realization of that vision?
My vision for the school district, honestly, is equality and inclusivity, and creating just an educational environment where all students are feeling supported, students are feeling safe, they're feeling that they are heard. And I had, just just want to share my personal experience. I am an East Chicago Central alumni as well, and I just want to be able to be that voice for the children. I didn't have that voice when I came to Central High School. I came in and I had to fight for myself, and I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel heard, and I had to fight for myself because at that time there was some sort of, I guess, state regulation where if you were out the country for more than 2 years, then they were to demote you a year. But my primary language was English, so I fought and fought so that they wouldn't demote me. But I just remember that feeling of not being heard, not having my own parents come and fight for me because they didn't know how. So I had to do it on my own. So that's my vision for the school city of East Chicago. We now are encountering what's inevitable, the influx of migrants that are coming in, and I know we're going to be seeing a lot of more of those issues arise, and I want to be there in the forefront to be a solution and be a part of that solution as well.
Okay, thank you. My question to you is, if selected, what do you want to accomplish during your tenure if you were on the school board?
Great question. Within the past couple months, you guys have achieved a lot. We have Carrie Gosh that went from a level 1 to a level 3. We have created more MOUs around the city as well. We also, what else have we done? I mean, you guys have done. You guys have momentum going. You guys have great momentum going. I want to get on train with that momentum. But one of the things that I would really like to see, part of the vision would be to introduce kids to college at a younger level, and also introduce to them integration technology. Expose them to information technology job roles. Those are just taking off really, really vastly, and I think to expose them into those type of careers. They don't take an extensive amount of schooling. Some kids do not, don't have that mindset of I want to be in school for 4 to 8 years. But information technology doesn't take that much, but it is a very profitable career, and it could take them very further. So that's one of the visions I want to do, expose them to those type of roles and careers.
My next question, can you please describe a specific situation in which your experience as well as your leadership have contributed to the success of a board or a committee you have served in the past?
I currently sit on 2 different boards. I sit on the board of my church. I'm the administrator as well of my church. And I also am the president of the board for the police citizens of East Chicago. And we, you know, just being able to research grants that were out there available so that we could educate the community and help just bridge the gap between the community and the police department, and also even engage the children. We had the opportunity to do a National Night Out at the park, where we received amazing donations, bikes, school packs, school supplies, and things of that nature. So being able to understanding the grants and the funding and all that it takes to place, and just be able to run that board, it really helped make that program successful. And I've been the president now since 2016.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that concludes our questions. Did you have any questions for us?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, Attorney Harris?
I think that concludes the interview, and this is the final applicant.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. My pleasure.
Well, I'd like to thank the audience, the public, for being here today as well, for listening in to the four candidates that we have selected at this time. And again, I would say that without you, it's hard for us to make our decisions move forward. So we definitely do consider your inputs. We like your inputs. If you have any questions for us after the meeting, please do so. I'll be here for a while. Trustee Smith will also be here. So thank you again for attending. And that concludes our interview session. Oh, Trustee Smith?
Yes, I'd just like to say thank you for taking the time out, and thank you for being a district that's involved in our district, a community that's involved in our district. Thank you for the support. Thank you for your prayers. We want to make 2024 a better year, and I know that we've had some situations, but I know if we all work together, pray together, and come together, we can make this district workable and successful. And in the last since the last 6 months, a lot of things have happened. We were not able to display them because we're moving so fast. But if you just sit back and watch, we have social emotional, we have, I don't want to call anybody's names, but we have consultants, we have counselors, we have all the things that we need, the elements to make this district work. All we're asking for is to get a board where we're workable so that we can enhance our teachers, our superintendent, because we are moving forward. We are going to move forward with or without. I'm making that perfectly clear, and I know I'm on the air. Either you're going to be with us or you're not. But we're going to make 2024 history. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our interview. Thank you very much.